Today we're going to do potato and cabbage chowder. Very similar in flavors and ingredients to Irish colcannon, if you're familiar with that. We're going to start with about 1 1/3 pounds of potatoes. Chunk them. They don't have to be finely chopped. We're going to put part of them through the blender to really make them softer and take care of that and use them as thickening. And we'll take part of them out and use them in the soup itself or in the chowder. I've got a cup of water and 14 ounces of chicken broth. You could use 2 cups if you make your own. That's equivalent to a can. I'm using the reduced sodium fat-free version. We're going to bring that to a simmer and let it cook for 12 to 15 minutes. We want those potatoes to get nice and tender. Once you get your potatoes nice and tender, it's time to begin worrying about the next step. Actually, if you're doing this at home and you have more than one burner, you can do some of these the next step simultaneously. I just want to set these aside. I'm going to take a little bit of it out for use in something else in a minute. Now for the next step with colcannon, it's simply a mixture of mashed potatoes and cabbage, and so that's kind of what we're going to with this chowder as well. I've got 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and 3 cups of cabbage and about 3/4 of a cup of onion. And I'm going to put these together and let them saute for about 10 minutes. And again, just coarsely chop it. If some of them are still together like that, don't worry about it. They're going to come apart as they cook. But this is going to give us the chunky part of this soup here together. And so we'll get those in here and simply wait for them to get hot and let them simmer for 10 minutes. And then we're going to come back and add a couple of more ingredients to it and let it go another 10 minutes to get some browning on it. Right now you don't want it to brown, you just want it to soften up and cook down. You can see after about 10 minutes the cabbage really softens down, the onion softens down, but we've not had it at a high enough temperature where we've gotten any browning. We don't want that to happen. What we're going to do now is I've got 8 ounces of a reduced fat, or in this case a turkey smoked sausage. If you aren't going to use the low-fat version or you don't want to use the turkey version, you could use the others too, but what I would do is probably put them into simmer in water, just submerge them in a little water and let them steam for maybe 5 minutes, and that'll remove some of the fat. That way you don't have it added to this, because we're going to try and keep this fairly low in fat, but we want to get that smoky, nice, rich flavor coming out of here. Try to bury the turkey a bit. We don't have to stir it the whole time, just occasionally, but you're going to have a better chance of getting any browning at all to come off on the meat if it's actually in contact with the surface of the pan. So I'm going to try and bury it down there a little bit, and then we'll just let that go for another 10 minutes. In the meantime, I want to take another step with our potatoes. We're going to keep some of the potatoes nice and chunky, and I'm going to put those back in with the vegetables that we're cooking. But the rest of them I'm going to blend up and make it nice and smooth as the thickening agent in this. So I want to take some of them out so we can use them later there. And just use a slotted spoon, because you want to keep that broth and that great broth that you've used or that you've developed. And take out about 3/4 of a cup and set those aside for use later. And the rest we're going to put through a blender and take care of that. Okay, this has been on for about 10 minutes and I don't have a lot of browning. You may want to leave it longer or leave it at a little bit higher temperature so that you actually get some. But I'm going to go ahead with the next couple of steps, and that's to put the potatoes that we've reserved back in here and stir those in. So that becomes part of the chowder. And also I've grated up 1 medium carrot, and it's simply grated, and I didn't even peel it, just scrubbed it well. And we'll keep all that nutrition in there, and we're going to take it off the heat now, and because it's grated and we're going to get a little more cooking later on, we're not going to worry about that continuing to actually get cooked, because it's going to get cooked through a little bit while it's sitting there with the other hot vegetables, and a little bit more when we stir it all into the soup. Our next step is to take those potatoes and the broth that we've prepared and get those into the blender. And if you've got a pan that you're confident in, that you can just pour it in, that's fine. I'm going to ladle these in here, at least most of the way through. And then we'll pour it on through the rest of the way. We're just going to blend it briefly. There are recipes similar to colcannon or cabbage and potatoes in most countries in that part of the world, because both of those vegetables were able, the potato and the cabbage, will be able to produce well, and they'd also store for a long period of time. So both of those would be of great use to those cultures. When you blend things that are hot, you don't want to have that lid on, especially tight with the cover on it. So I've left it and I'm just going to cover it with a towel and make sure that we hold it down so that we get just a little bit of blending. And that's all there is to that. You don't want to blend it for a long time because we're working with potato starch, and if you do, you're going to end up with something that's a little bit too gluey. So we're going to take this out and put it back in our original pot. And if it's got a few chunks of potatoes left in there, don't worry about it because you've got chunks that you used or saved over here anyway. So put that back on the heat, and we'll take this and add it to this pot, and you're just going to leave that on heat. We're going to add just a little bit of milk. It can be up to a half a cup of milk, but the amount of milk that you add is going to be dependent on how thick the particular variety of potatoes that you used has made the chowder. I used russet potatoes because they tend to leach their starch out much better than a red potato would. So bring this up to just to a simmer. We just need to heat it up. And I'm going to wait to add the rest of the milk. It's up to a half a cup, depending on how thick you want it. Just up to a simmer, and it's ready to go. So I'm going to ladle some up. It hasn't quite come to a simmer, but we'll assume that it has. This becomes a great meal on a cool fall evening for a family of 4. Or for 2 people with some left over for the next day. I'm putting a little bit of green onion just for a little extra color. Serve that with some corn muffins or some cornbread sticks. And again, this is potato and cabbage chowder, a really nice meal. I hope you'll give this one a try. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.